We had one product until we talked to Ulrik. And then with Ulrik, we introduced 4 different tiers. Of course, it was beneficial if you took tier 1 was the lowest one and tier 2, 3, 4. But it was beneficial for you to go directly to tier 3. Ulrik's ability to tune in on our product and our way of working was super good. As you said, having a consulting coming externally, they could be a really smart guy telling you how to work everything out. And that was not the case here. You could say he tiered our product apart in a lot of small bits and then assemble it in what turned out to become the tiers and the other parameters that we can use for the pricing.
I'm really excited to speak to you. It sounds like a really interesting project. Would you mind starting off with a brief introduction? Who you are, what you do, what your company does?
My name is Mike Graham. I'm the founder of MapsPeople, and until a couple of years ago, the CEO for many, many years. The company is working with indoor mapping. You know, mapping outdoor like Google Maps and similar map products. We're doing indoor mapping for really large places like airports, universities, really big exhibitions. And we help people to get most out of their area and to navigate their area. That's the main purpose of the company. Most of our products are sold through partners because if you have a customer, they need our solution to be built together with another solution. Meaning that if you're in a really big office space, it's about optimizing the usage of the office. And indoor mapping is a really important component, but all the scheduling and the figuring out where to sit and so on, that's our partner who delivers this part of the product. And we're a building block into their offering. And same for universities, companies building apps for universities or for really large stadiums and so on.
That's really cool. Ulrik was mentioning it a little bit, and I was watching some of the demos. It's a really cool product. What pricing challenges were you facing that led you to an interest in working with Willingness to Pay?
From the start, we were a small company and we need the pricing to be very simple. So we price by the area, meaning by the square meter or square feet. And we had same pricing for all kind of end customers. But we realized that it was more value to a really large bank or so on than compared to a stadium, for example, or a retail chain. So we need to differentiate. From a starting point, it was really good for the customers to know that it's by the area. Everyone understood that. But there was a challenge that if you talk to Walmart or a big company, they don't know how many square meters they have as an area. So we need to redefine that. And another situation was that one pricing for everything, no matter if you used it only for overview or you use it for very detailed planning. So it was the same pricing. From a starting point, it was simple, it was good, but we need to differentiate more. And that's where Willingness to Pay come into play.
And were you looking at other options before you decided to work with Willingness to Pay, or how did you choose that?
We had a head of product who has worked with Ulrik before in another company, and he was the one introducing Ulrik. Of course, as a CEO, I looked at what he could do. We were discussing the value of what he could offer. We talked about a single other option, but very soon we decided to go with Ulrik. We did some steps there, some phase 1, 2, 3. So we could see if phase 1 paid off for us, we could continue to phase 2 and so on.
Awesome. Could you tell me a little bit about how your project began? How did the project take shape? What were those phases?
Ulrik, he has a very strong recipe how to work with this. So there was, I think, 15 different steps that we should walk through. Also, it was scheduled. He need to talk to this type of person in that amount of time, and then this type of person in this amount of time, and so on. It was extremely structured. During the process, he came up with some iterations of proposal for how we could approach a new, not only pricing, but also packaging structure. He introduced new parameters for pricing. As I said, our pricing was very simple from a starting point, but he introduced a lot of different parameters. And he also convinced us that we should dare to see the pricing becoming more complex. He also argued that the customers would accept a higher pricing for a more complex product.
That's understandable. Can you tell me a little bit more about how did pricing become more complicated? And was it just originally, it's kind of like, we've been doing things this way, we have existing customers, we're hesitant? Or can you tell me a little bit more about the hesitancies as well?
There's two different things coming to my mind here. One is how we did the rollout, but let me start another place. As I said, we had a simple pricing, and our pricing was subscription only. There was no upfront fee. Ulrik said that maybe we should consider an upfront fee, because every customer knows that in our situation, there's an upfront job to be done. They could feel that we were cheating on them if we didn't charge them for this upfront work. His assumption was that we could even take a higher subscription if we took an upfront fee. But I'm not sure we challenged that towards our customers. And then the rollout, we started with more batch of new customers. And then we widened that out to a larger amount, and then we rolled it out for all new customers. And then we started doing a rollback for existing customers.
Yeah, how long is that phase that you're discussing?
I think from first test on new customers until we did the rollout on existing customers, it was more than a year. We need to get some feedback from the new customers before we could carry on for the next step for widening it out to all new customers.
I was just curious if raising prices, particularly if you're rolling it out to existing customers, I would imagine that comes with some trepidation. You're a little bit concerned how that's going to go over.
The rollout for existing customers was done after I left the position as a CEO. So I'm not quite sure how that was done. Importantly is that we had one product until we talked to Ulrik. And then with Ulrik, we introduced 4 different tiers. Of course, it was beneficial if you took tier 1 was the lowest one, and tier 2, 3, 4. But it was beneficial for you to go directly to tier 3. Maybe not tier 4, but tier 3. That was a really great strategy. As you know, if you go to a web shop for a SaaS product, this is the preferred subscription used by most customers, right? It's some kind of highlighted version.
Ulrik mentioned that, you developed that new pricing taxonomy based on map detail levels and verticals. And also there was a bit of a reframing of the value prop to increasing revenue per square foot to kind of reimagine pricing. Tell me a little bit about either of those, either what were the 4 tiers that you just described, if that's that pricing taxonomy, and what was the process like?
The first version was a result of Ulrik's interview with our product people. Well, he could suggest us to split our one product into these 4 different tiers. And then he worked very, very close with a guy called Christian. He was the one who has been working with Ulrik previously in another company. The two of them together designed those 4 tiers, starting with a very, very basic map as tier 1. Pretty much no one needs that one, but some companies who just have a map as a very simple thing, that's good for them. And then on top of that, there's a more complex map where you can add sensors to the map, and proximity sensor, humidity, temperature, whatever. There's a tier on top of that where you can do 3D stuff, from very simple to very high definition 3D maps. That was the development in the different tiers.
How did reframing that value prop from increasing revenue per square foot meter, how did that impact the business, your business approach?
It impacted the way that we decided to go full scale for 3D, because we could see that was the most beneficial. Of course, it was very opposite. That was most detailed and the most valuable tier for our customers. Everyone moving from 2D to 3D, we just made a not that big step from 2D to 3D. So everyone went for the 3D. So yeah, we got quite nice, better pricing for the 3D than for the 2D. And so we incentivized everyone to go for the 3D map. That worked out very well. So today, our existing customers, they are not at 3D, all of them, but they are moving in that direction in different speed. Of course, most new customers, they go for the 3D directly. Our previous strategy, then we just have giving everything for free, because becoming a small customer, now we're at least in top 3 of indoor mapping companies in the world. Customers expect us to have a detailed pricing. But before that time, years back, we just figure out that we need to give customers more for the same subscription.
Do you remember any like immediate benefits that you noticed after implementing the new pricing structure? What were some of the things you noticed improving?
The introduction of an upfront payment, but I'm not, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how that's rolled out for at least our existing customers. But for new customers, that's a thing that we have done in a number of occasions. Some different differentiators that could be volume-based. If you have a really intensive use of mapping, you might pay more for the usage of the map than if it is very low usage. And that's a differentiator also introduced by ulrik.
What were your favorite parts of working with willingness to pay? You know, what was the team support like? Anything, you know, were they super detailed? I'd just love to hear what you most valued about that partnership.
Some of the most valuable part is that ulrik is always super prepared. It's very efficient meetings we have. They are not that long, and they are very efficient. And he always knows what he wants to get out of it as far as he could. He has prepared of what the ambitions would be for this specific meeting. We need to decide for this and that, and we have 45 minutes.
Do you have any advice for someone who's maybe similar to you and considering working with willingness to pay?
There's a couple of things to advise to new customers. One is that you need to dedicate a resource, maybe not all the time, but is responsible for this, to implement it, to be in the project from day one and until it's rolled out for existing customers. Otherwise, you will not get anything out of it. And another thing is that you need a full commitment from the management. It's a bit expensive to a small company like ours. If you don't have this support from the management, it'll not work. So invest time and get top management support. An advice to new customers is that they should dare to make changes, because if they are stuck in traditions, it'll not work. You need to have courage to do everything in a new way.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think just anecdotally from these conversations, I think it's a theme of, you deeply care about the thing that you're building, and it's scary to make a change. But, that's the purpose of the exercise. So,
and also, if your normal attitude is that I know best what to do, then forget it.
Totally. That's great advice. And also, you probably don't want a ton of that on your team anyway. So, yep, that is great advice. And I'd imagine having an external, like a consultant come in, it can kind of help all of those different stakeholders internally. If that person earns your respect, is super prepared, meetings are super efficient, then I think it can kind of help everyone internally sort of like fall into the same order of operations, which is helpful, I would imagine.
And one thing I need to say, which was really important, is that ulrik's ability to tune in on our product and our way of working was super good. As you said, having a consulting coming externally, they can be a really smart guy telling you how to work everything out. And that was not the case here. You can say he teared our product apart in a lot of small bits and then assemble it in what turned out to become the tiers and the other parameters that we can use for the pricing.
Yeah, he mentioned that you were working with software providers, hotel chains, large offices. So it's, creating that vertical specific pricing based on what those verticals need. And then also the different tiers for detail. Is there anything about those different verticals that we should understand of like what each of them needs or what they're interested in and how you built that into the pricing?
That's on the customer side to figure that out, because the customer needs to know their customers in detail. And we already did that. But ulrik helped us that this type of customer you should use this tier and this model for this type of customer, maybe another tier and another model for another type of customer. Our case, it's very important to mention also that we are selling both direct to Fortune 500 companies. Most of it is through partners, as I said, who are delivering software solutions to stadiums or to airports or to large malls where we are a component into their offering. I think around 80% is through partners and 20% is direct. and you need to know the industries very, very well already. I'm not sure. Maybe ulrik can help with that as well. But in our case, we already knew everything about that.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I know ulrik will as well.